when the Democratic Party aligns with Republicans in some sort of power sharing agreement or power sharing arrangement, the things that come out of that are never progressive, right? If anything, the progressive issues get sidelined time and time again, right? The IDC is a good case study in this. If anybody wants to look into them a little bit more, you can. But basically, you would have, progressive New York senators that would be saying on their websites, yes, I'm for universal health care. Yes, I'm for a higher minimum wage. Yes, I'm for the Green New Deal, whatever these issues are. And then every time some progressive legislation would try to get through the state Senate, it wouldn't go anywhere. It would die in committee. It would die in the committee. And part and parcel to that was the IDC, right? So the Democrats that participated in that power sharing agreement, they're like, okay, we'll just bring it to the committee and it'll just sit there and it will die. It will never get to the floor for a vote. So it's one thing to say on your website, to say when you're on the campaign trail, to say when you're door knocking, these are the issues I support, this is what I'm going to fight for. But then when you get down to the wire and you're there and this is what you're doing instead, you're letting bills die in committee and whatnot, after a while, the American public doesn't buy it anymore. They look at you as the senator that cried wolf. So I think we're seeing some of the same things happen in Congress. And so when they were floating this idea last week of the Democrats creating some sort of power sharing agreement with the Republican Party because of this Kevin McCarthy problem, I was just eye rolling. I was like, yeah, that's not.
Yeah, it went nowhere.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. A, it's just not. The Republicans aren't going to agree to it. But B, even if it did, how is this a win?
So I think people are really starting to get frustrated with time and time again. And this is just another, for instance, of it where you see, you see the Freedom Caucus withholding their votes and the squad wouldn't do this. And every single time on every single bill, on every single policy, there's always just enough that we lose. There's always just enough of a split that we lose. And I think people are starting to say, hey, this is ridiculous. What's going on here? And so here's what AOC had to say about this.
Let's play some of this.
To some of the Instagram stuff.
I see some people say, Dems should negotiate to get concessions. We do all the time. But what we don't do is bring them publicly in order to empower not just Republicans, but the fascist flank of the Republican Party. And ironically, a lot of the concessions that Kevin McCarthy, in nature, they're not the same ones, of course, but the nature of some of these concessions actually do overlap with some of the concessions that have been the subject of private negotiations on the Democratic side. We have also negotiated for certain budgetary we have negotiated for certain budgetary rules. We've negotiated there have been negotiations around committees, budgetary rules, and very similar kind of scopes and areas. But we do that prior to getting to the floor vote. Not only that, but when people say Dems should do this, there's also a very critical question of just basic math.
All right, there's so many things here
there's so many things. So first of all, what did they get then? What did she's saying? We negotiate privately. Okay, what did you get? Well, let's start with Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, exactly.
Nancy, what did you get? Fill me in. If something happened privately, what did y'all get?
Nothing. So here's the thing. Here's the thing, Rod, that kills me about this. So she's basically criticizing the Freedom Caucus for withholding their votes. That's basically what she's saying there. Like, that's a big chunk of people to go to the floor and not know they're going to be on your side. Well, isn't that the fucking point? That's why they're doing what they're doing. They know if they withhold their vote, that gives them power. That is the point.
Yeah, and the whole thing where she's like, it's math. They have like numbers. Look, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, which is a joke. The only thing you need to do to join the Progressive Caucus is have progressive car insurance. It's a freaking joke. But nonetheless, they're selling us this joke. So guess what? The Congressional Progressive Caucus has like over 100 people. So that's a big flank. If they were actually what they say they are, I mean, it's again, it's a freaking. I think like
none of them are willing to withhold votes to get what they want, and
none
we've
of them
seen
are even
this.
progressive. But like,
but even the ones that are, Ron, there are some in there that are progressive. They're legitimately are, but for them to say, you think none of them are progressive? None of them?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Not a single one?
No.
All right, that'll be a conversation for another day too. My point is this: they're not willing to do what the Freedom Caucus is willing to do, and that's part and parcel to the problem. I think the folks that voted for them want them to do that. They want them to withhold votes unless they get some concessions. Saying that we're negotiating behind the wall before we get to the floor, you just don't know about it, isn't going to cut it at this point. That means at some point you conceded to whatever the party demands were, which weren't progressive, and that it comes across as you didn't fight for anything, which you probably didn't, let's be honest. We saw it in California when it came to our universal health care bill. They pulled the vote from going to the floor prior to that day because they said they didn't have the votes, right? So that's what they were doing. They were negotiating behind
and then when you
the
ask
scenes,
for names,
they won't give them to you. But here's the thing.
You.
The difference is this: when they take it to the floor, and if somebody was actually willing to go to the mat on this and did that, the voting public would see quite clearly who was behind the bill and who wasn't. And I think that is very important information for voters to have.
That's why we wanted the vote on Medicare for all. I mean, that's why they were like, let's get the vote on Medicare for all. No one thought it was going to win. Of course it wasn't. But like, you wanted to see like, okay, let's see where the cards lay. Because there was a bunch of people that when Trump was in office and they knew there was no chance of Medicare for all happening, not that there's a chance now, but, like with a Republican in the White House, there's no chance at all. Like they were like, oh, yeah, I'm for it. Now Joe Biden's in the White House. He's against Medicare for all, but it's going to make him look bad if he vetoes it. So let's see who's really for it. Let's see how it really freaking lines up.
But this is what they're doing. I mean, in the IDC, it was another example of that. We just talked about that. This is what they do, right? This gives them the cover to say, I'm a progressive. I believe in Medicare for all. I believe in the Green New Deal. I believe in raising the minimum wage. These are my values. This is why you should vote for me. It allows them to continue to keep doing that without ever having to make any movements in that direction whatsoever, right? Because nobody's ever going to know. This is the political party that the Democrats engage in constantly, the political theater that they engage in constantly. And this is why voters don't trust the party anymore, and haven't for many years now. For many years now that people...
The reason that this heat is going on AOC and the squad
is because they said the opposite when they ran for office. They were going to fight. That's right. We're going to fight for you. We're going to, put our foot down.
And they're going to cause a ruckus.
We're going to cause a ruckus. And that's not what's
happening. Go from causing a ruckus to celebrating the, quote, unity in your party. It's like, well, wait a second. You were supposed to cause the good trouble. You were supposed to cause the ruckus in the party. And you're not doing that. And again, like, she's using all the like, well, look at the numbers. It's like, yeah, but if you guys don't act as a block, you're not using the numbers you do have. We get it. There's only 6 of you. But if you guys acted as a block every single time, there'd be concessions. And I'm one of these people too. I don't care. I really care so little. And by so little, I mean not at all. I don't care about the aesthetic stuff. I just don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about tweets or Instagram. I really don't care. And if like all the aesthetic stuff was like friendly with your colleagues, but we were getting stuff done politically, I wouldn't care. If we were getting concessions and they were acting as a block and they were holding down the line and they were like getting these wins,
or at least trying to get them. Right now, it appears they're not even trying to get them. You know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't care. You can call Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear until you're blue, no matter who in the face. I don't care. I don't care if we're getting those wins. The fact that we're not every single time we lose by just enough. And if they would act as a block, it could have gone differently. So it's like, sometimes people who won't criticize the squad, they always they're like, well, there's only 6 of them. What do you ask them? It's just like everything we're asking is within their power. We're not asking them to do anything outside of their power.
Ron,
I don't think that AOC can ride a dragon and shoot healthcare down in the form of lightning bolts. I'm not asking her to do that. I'm asking the squad to work as a block, something they continue to refuse to do. And now they're freaking celebrating it. And she went from...
Yeah, that's exactly it.
There's another clip in here where she's celebrating the diversity of the Democratic Party, quote unquote.
In a way that didn't make any sense. We need to play some of this. This was some serious word salad. That was the 4-minute one.
And secondly, that also speaks to the Republican base. The Republican base is very different than the Democratic base in nature, in issue, in parallel, etc. The Democratic Party is a very diverse party, whether people like that or not just in terms of identity. We are very diverse in terms of identity, but we're also diverse in terms of ideology, we're diverse in terms of age, all of those things. And that diversity means that our Democratic base is very diverse in its interests as well. And the Democratic base would not sustain this kind of action.
So she went from, and this is, so it's almost as if she's following a DNC guidebook on how to break down these issues for voters who are not happy. Because she went from, a couple years ago, AOC was saying things like Joe Biden and I shouldn't even be in the same political party, by the way. She's right.
And she's
saying things like there is no left party in the United States. The Democratic Party is not a left party.
Yeah, I agree.
And now she's saying, it's like she's rebranding that now via DNC handbook and using the whole we're a big tent. We're a big tent. Which, by the way, that's the opposite of what a political party should frickin' be. Yeah, a political party is supposed to have a frame and an ideological framework that they think will make better laws and rules for a society. And you know who they negotiate with? Other frickin' political parties.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that
and they form a coalition.
And they form coalitions. I'm not saying they need to be 100% monolithic in everything. Of course not. But you shouldn't be some
but on the big
wide,
issues, yeah,
like you shouldn't be like, oh, I think everyone should have health care. Oh, I'm not so sure. Well, we're a wide
then you don't
tent.
belong. Yeah,
That's
you don't belong in the
bullshit.
same party. Then I agree. It doesn't make any sense.
That's bullshit. And so now she's celebrating this when before she knew it was a problem. And this is why people are really freaking fed up. This is why people are fed up. And, you know, it's not, I mean, I'm sorry. I know that people, they don't want to admit that the squad is really letting us down because it's like, well, they're the only people who are nice to us. It's like, look, you got to call something what it is. You can't sugarcoat what's going on here. And at the end of the day, it's way easier for them to play it the company way. It's way easier for them career-wise, and that's what's happening. So, I mean...
I think to an extent it is. I think
how is it not?
I think an example the fear... No, I'm saying that I think the fear of not having any power is really a powerful thing to hold over all of these.
We don't have any power, though. We have no power.
Well, but you're never going to have power compared to like the corporate Dems. But what little power you do have is in, I think, withholding your vote or in demanding certain concessions for that vote. And I think the optics are now that doesn't happen whatsoever, which is problematic. I think her voters would prefer, and I think this is true of any of the squad members, I think they would prefer to like at least see the battle happen, even if you lose, because then they know at least somebody's fighting for them. But right now, what they hear is somebody saying, we negotiated behind closed doors. And obviously the jaded response, the cynical response to that, and people are cynical for a very good reason, is, yeah, sure you did. Whatever, you're just as bad as everybody else in Congress. You're a sellout. That should be obvious to her that's what would happen, right? That's of course that's what's going to happen. So if her and her friends behaved like the Freedom Caucus, who she's now criticizing, then there might be concessions, right? The fact that we are entering, 15 rounds of voting here is because they are withholding their votes, because they want something for them. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I don't agree, obviously, with these far-right politicians. I don't hold the same politics that they do, but I at least understand that that's a valid tactic to use if you want to gain power. So the fact, I guess, so what I'm getting at is the fact is that she's not willing to, AOC is not willing to, a lot of these young progressives aren't willing to do the same thing. And I think that is the problem right there. That is the problem. So even if she is trying to negotiate behind closed doors, nobody believes her.
Yeah, I
because
mean, I don't
they
believe
don't.
her. I mean, I'll straight up say, I mean, I'm not in the room, but I don't believe her. I don't, because
But you see what I'm
we
saying? You
haven't
would think
seen
that
any
they
of
would
them.
at least understand that. Like, how does she not see that clear as day? So instead of criticizing the Freedom Caucus in the way she just did, she should maybe embrace their tactics and try them out and see what that gets her as a progressive congressperson.
Of course, but this is nothing she doesn't know. I mean, of course she knows that. I mean, I think it's just, I
You
think
don't
it's
think it's
just a
out of like, I've been beaten down because I'm young and I'm fearful and they have power over me a little bit, or no? I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. Like, some people would argue that a lot of these young Congress folks are just.
I'm sorry. When you are a member of Congress, and by the way, these are Ro Khanna's words. These are not Ron Placone's words. These are Ro Khanna's words. When you are a member of Congress, you are in the 1% of the 1% as far as how powerful you are.
Yeah.
You are one of the most powerful people in the world. That's just a fact. That's a fact. And AOC is a congressperson. And look, she's a very, very instrumental figure in our politics. I think she could very well be president someday.
You do?
You know what? I think she totally could. Absolutely. You don't think
I
she
don't
could?
see it. Nope.
AOC.
I don't. No
I
way.
think she definitely could become president someday. Abso-freaking-lutely.
I don't
Who
see
could?
it.
Who else could?
I don't see it.
You don't think AOC could ever be president? One of the most popular
don't.
politicians in the country. You don't think okay. I think she totally could. You know, I mean, first she was showing up at Nancy Pelosi's office in protest. She used to live stream the frickin' like her orientation. She live streamed it and was calling out how many lobbyists they were forced to listen to. Now she's talking about like, oh,
which was great, by the way. I wish she would do stuff
All
like that again.
Stuff was great.
Yeah.
I miss that AOC.
I do too.
That's the AOC I think that excited a lot of people.
Yeah, because she was holding power to account. Yeah, and that's what. Yeah, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you there. I think if she did do those things, she would be a more popular politician.
I agree on that. I don't disagree on that. All right, should we go
One
to the
more
super
clip,
chat
or we just skip it? Should we let people vote?
What did you say in it? I forget. Play the short one, Colin. Play the 50 second. That's the only one we haven't listened to yet.
You know, and people say Lauren Boebart has more spine than you. Lauren Boebart won her race by 500 votes. Lauren Boebart took a Trump plus, 9 district and nearly lost it to an up-and-coming Democrat as an incumbent member of Congress. Lauren Boebart is dramatically weakened. And the people of Colorado nearly sent her packing. If 500 people voted differently that day, this would not be happening right now. And so, you know, if you're a Republican, if you're a hard-standing Republican, she almost cost you your majority. And if it, frankly, wasn't for the New York State Democratic Party and the New York State Democratic Party's leadership and the incompetence there, we would be having that gavel right now. If between them and Lauren Boebart, we would be having a Democratic majority at this moment.
I'm no fan of Lauren Boebert, but I mean, that's a lot. Again, that's a lot different than the whole, hey, it's okay to be a one-term. I mean,
it's a lot different. Yeah, I agree with you. But also, I don't think that she's markedly weakened. Okay, granted, we thought she was losing that election. At first it appeared she had lost it the night of, but that she made this, you know, sort of comeback and just barely won this her reelection by 500 votes. But I don't think that she's markedly weaker for that.
A win's a win. I mean, whatever. I honestly don't have the bandwidth to be like, oh, how powerful is Lauren Boebert in her district? But like, yeah, I mean, it's like she won.
But I think she's missing the point. The criticism that is being lobbed at AOC over this is they're saying Boebert's more powerful because Boebert's willing to make a stand for the people that do agree with her and the people that support and vote her, right?
Yeah, Boebert's
that
using
is the
leverage.
point. It's got nothing to do. She's using leverage. That's exactly right. It has nothing to do with how close she almost lost her election at all.
Well, and honestly, like that kind of shows. I mean, again, like I'm no Lauren Boebert fan, but like AOC framing it that way, like, well, she barely won. I mean, it's almost just like, okay, so is this just about your career, or is this about standing up for
That's
things?
That's how it comes across. No, it comes across as that.
Like that. It comes across as that, where it's just like, okay, so it's your career first and policy second. This is, again, coming from the person who before said, I'm willing to be a one-term congressperson if it means fighting for things. So it's disappointing.
Yeah, it's weird.
And guess what, guys? if we don't kind of, these are supposed to be our allies. We're told that the squad, they're our allies in government. So if we don't hold them to account, all we're doing is just grooming the new generation of Pelosi's, Obamas, and Clintons. That's what we're doing. And I don't want a new generation of them. I want something better. That's what I want. I want something better. So,